Well, it's been a while, but we are back. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name is Rory. I'm joined by my very good friend,
Adam, and we're joined by our guest.
Andrea.
Hey, Andrea. How we doing, man? You good?
Yeah, good, thank you. All good. Still, I think I've just about recovered about the loss of Italy, but yeah, we'll see.
Time heals all wounds, Andrea. Don't worry. We will get there. We will get there eventually. But Adam, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I was recovering from that kind of similar feeling with Poland, but I kind of accepted it before we even started the tournament. So it's all good. It's all good. We did better than we anticipated, right? But yeah, all good here. How are things in Milan, more importantly, Rory?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. As viewers will see, I'm in a new setting. So I've recently moved house. So now is the first time in about 4 weeks I've been able to sit down and relax. Hence why we're finally doing the podcast again. So it's just nice to be able to sit down at a desk with internet because I've not had Wi-Fi for a good while. So, it's the little things in life. But this week, we are going to, of course, be looking forward to the quarterfinals. We will be taking a look back at an Italian disaster, what the newspapers have been saying, what the mood is in Italy, and where Italian football goes from here. And of course, we will be looking forward to England taking on Switzerland with Gareth Southgate set to make some exciting changes. And we'll be looking forward to the other games: Spain versus Germany, Portugal versus France, and Netherlands versus Turkey. Guys, if we're ready, should we all get depressed and talk about calcio?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, the Italian autopsy has begun. Everybody's very, very angry. My notifications from Gazzetta dello Sport have been non-stop in moaning about how bad the situation is. Andrea, do you think the initial reactions were justified, over the top? Do you think people are getting carried away? How do you see it?
I think it's completely justified, to be honest. I'm on that camp of the side of things. I feel like it came already from the beginning of kind of the squad selection of picking like 10 defenders. So he was basing his kind of style of football in a back three. We played 2 pre-friendlies against Turkey and Bosnia, playing that three in the back. So you're thinking, he's going to stick with that. And then game one, he switches to a 4-back. And we've got no wingers because he's dropped them because he's playing 3-back. So I think he already initiated a mess like that. I also think the squad in general, like some players were very questionable that they were in the squad. Like Fiorentina is a good player, but did he really merit a place over Locatelli, for example? Cristante, I don't think has offered much either. There's quite a few players in that squad that weren't going to play. Like Bellanova didn't get a look in the end, which I'm not surprised because he's never played him. So it's a lot of mystery in that sense. I feel like he never really understood and got grasp of what he wanted to do going in, and kind of sticking to one game plan, or at least an ideology to go into the Euros. The only defense I'll give him, of course, is that he did just get the job recently, and I think that was his 12th or 13th game when he got knocked out. And it is a big job, and he took over a really delicate time, I guess, with a lot of injuries as well, which we could say as well. We did have a lot of injured players going into the tournament, but I feel like the performances, bar the first half of the Albania game, were absolutely like no excuse, like very poor. Especially that Switzerland game. Like they couldn't even do 3 passes. Like this was like they looked like a team managed by someone that's never managed a football match before. Like it was that bad. And I feel like there's no excuse on that sense to be able to like at the end of the day, we might be having not the greatest of squads, whatever, but we're Italy. We should be able to be performing, showing ourselves no matter what. And that was no level of good for any international team whatsoever. So yeah, I feel like that Switzerland performance is very concerning going forward.
I think you're absolutely spot on. I think Spalletti has to hold some of this. I think if we're going to talk about the Switzerland game, I think the changes in midfield made zero sense. Like throwing Fagioli into that game when he hasn't played for 8 months or whatever it was just seemed absolute madness to me. Cristante, again, is a player that I've defended a lot in the past for Roma. I think he gets a lot of unwarranted stick because I think he does the quiet jobs, but he obviously had an absolute stinker, as did everybody else in the team. But I think the fact that Spalletti wasn't willing to stick to one system, as you said, or stick to one lineup, just caused chaos completely. And then maybe, Adam, I don't know what you think, but that led to the kind of lethargy from the players on the pitch. Like, and not to give them an excuse, but if they're not sure who the starting players are, they're not sure what the idea is, it is going to reduce the amount of application you put in, right?
Yeah, I think we've reflected personally, and it's just the fact that there was so many different formations throughout the group stages. It was almost like Spalletti went into this, and I think a lot of Italian supporters felt that maybe after the friendlies going into the Euros, maybe he'd kind of found out his formation because it kind of instigated that maybe with the changes to make the 26-man squad that he was going to go with a 3-man defense. You know, why would you have 5 centre backs, for example, if you're not going to utilize them all, for example? And it was just kind of a myriad of different ideas going on pitch. And the fact that he kind of kept with his safe men, you know, the likes of Di Lorenzo, even though he had a terrible tournament, you know, causes more question marks about Spalletti and the fact that he's quite stubborn. The monologues in the press conferences just confused the hell out of everyone, in particular for that game against Switzerland, where he just went off on one, you know, blame into players for not being sharp enough, you know, instigating that one of the reporters even was probably too young, so he should be jerking off. You know, that was bluntly, like, he was just saying random stuff that is just like, what is going on? Is he mentally well? But I think the problem is he stuck or was stubborn in this kind of philosophy that he wanted to stick with this 4-3-3 formation. It kind of myriaded into like a 4-5-1 or supporting lone striker role, and it just didn't work. You know, with the players that he had at his disposal, the players were confused. A lot of the defenders are more used to a 3 kind of back line instead of like a 4 or even a 5 sometimes. Di Marco was ineffective. I think he was really disappointing in this tournament. But it does kind of raise concerns about, is Spalletti the right man? And I'm still like 50-50 in the respect of, even though we've had almost a week after that kind of event taking place, I still don't know if I feel confident enough that he will kind of evolve this Italy squad. I think he needs time in one respect because, you know, he's only been in a role for so many months. You know, he had to pick up a bit of a mess, you know, pick up morale at the same time. But then when you look at the events unfold, you're like, doesn't feel like there's much going into the future. Could someone else inspire this squad? So it's a lot of question marks to be answered. I think there has to be a short to medium term kind of look in terms of, can Spalletti actually turn this group of players into a more desirable Italy side? I think in time he will, but unfortunately, I don't think he got the picks right. I think he got the formation wrong ultimately. So is this the learning curve? Potentially it is, Rory.
Well, I think this is the thing. I think with international management, obviously, like, you don't have as much time with the players. Then you have 3 games, and your whole legacy is defined by those 3 games. And then hopefully you get a 4th and a 5th and a 6th, right? And I think it's the first. I completely agree. He didn't pick players like Orsolini, who obviously I'm obsessed with, but I think having a winger like that on the bench would have been really, really useful in games when you're in a tight spot. Like, so I think his squad selection was flawed, right? His team selection in the tournament was flawed. I think he got it horribly wrong, but I also think the players have to take 50% of this blame as well, because they made England's performances look like, 11 Stuart Pearce's. Like, the level of apathy they had in those performances, especially the Switzerland game, like, it reminded me of the Emery days at Arsenal, right? When within the first 30 seconds, I could tell you if we were going to lose a game or not, right? And the first 30 seconds of that Italy game, I went, yeah, Italy have lost this. There's no way we're winning this game. Like, and I think that the players have to take a bit of blame for that, because they at no point imposed themselves on the game or even tried to get themselves back into it. I also think with international management, though, you have to have 2 tournaments. You have to have like a Euros and a World Cup. You have to like allow them to have that bit of time that if it starts badly, that you can then, learn from the mistakes you've made and hopefully bring it into a World Cup and have a better performance. But Andrea, the key thing here is Spalletti is going to be the manager, but it's absolutely massive that he gets them to the next World Cup, right?
That is the priority at the end of the day. And my only worry is that because it's ended so sour, that any results leading up to that qualifying, or even the first couple of games in the qualifying, if it doesn't go quite right, the pressure's going to mount and mount. And can we really risk switching managers through a qualifying campaign like we did it in the Euros? To be fair, we did, and it didn't work that quite well in the end. And that's the big concern. And overlooking everything, the Nations League, I know it's not the biggest competition in the world, but we've got France away first game. So that's potential where, if Italy get, demolished in that game, again, it just goes back to the Switzerland game and everything and all the kind of sourness around that. So my only concern is, how does he get out of this hole? Because I have no faith. I have no faith that he's going to get out of this kind of bitterness and sourness that we are feeling right now. And I just think the pressure's going to mount every time, every moment, every game. And I just think for a manager managing a national team like Italy, that is going to be huge to come from. So that's my main concern. I don't know how he comes back from that.
Yeah, and especially as Adam said, with the comments in the press as well, when you've thrown the Inter players under the bus, and arguably they've been your better performers, like Bastoni, Barella, okay, not DiMarco, but expecting DiMarco to play 3 games in a week is very optimistic. Like most Inter fans will tell you that, right? But for Barella and Bastoni to be 2 of your standout players and then throw them under the bus, it's difficult to come back from that, I think. So it will be really interesting to see where Italy's qualifications go from here. But the main talk in the Gazzetta and in the papers that I've been reading recently has been Italy. They've decided they need their Lamine Yamal, right? They need their Philip Foden. They need their Jude Bellingham, right? And they are determined to find this player, right? They're like, every country has their exciting prospect. Where is Italy's? Now, obviously, the name that everybody's talking about, and he's going to be playing in Serie C next year, is Kamada at AC Milan. He's the player that there's already a lot of pressure on him. Adam, do you think this approach from Italy of just find a wonder kid now is what everybody else is doing? It feels like the most reactionary thing in the world, right?
It certainly does. There's a lot of hype around Kamada, and rightly so, because if you saw that under 17's performance prior to these Euros, you'd be purring as an Italian fan. I kind of speculated that maybe he should have been included in this squad just to be someone of an impact off the bench. There's no fears. You've seen it with a lot of the 16-year-olds that have played in this tournament so far. They've created those kind of shock stories. They've created those moments of brilliance, especially when you look at the grand scheme of things of the kind of fancied nations at these Euros have struggled, with maybe the exception of maybe Spain and Germany. So there is an argument that potentially this is the approach. I know Giorgio Chiellini kind of speculated around the fact that there needs to be something as a long term, that they need to start focusing around the kind of youth setups and academies, not just broadly relied upon the big clubs to kind of ensure that there is an Italian stable hold, because a lot of these Italian players ultimately as well aren't getting the game time at Serie A clubs. They're not getting loaned out to Serie B clubs necessarily. And that's the problem. If you're going to rely on Serie C and Serie D being the kind of areas that these players are going to flourish and develop into players, unfortunately, standards are really even worse down there. And that's why a lot of the younger players are going abroad. They're going to the Basels, they're going to Germany, they're going to sometimes Spain. So look, there is an opportunity there. I personally think youth is the kind of way they go about it. Look, Andrea will know about Coyote. I think he's a great potential, maybe not all-rounded yet, but look, you're telling me that he couldn't do a better job than Di Lorenzo? I think there's an argument to say he should be in that squad, much like Kamada as an impact off the bench. He's definitely something out there. There's a number of players. I'm just looking at a list of them at the moment that is going to be potentially expected to maybe jump up, like Carnesecchi, who we've said has had a phenomenal season at Atalanta, won't displace Donnarumma, but he should be bled in. At the same time, if I'm looking at it, Casadei, Pafundi, these are names that have always been linked. And then you've got some younger players like Sherndor, who was linked with a move to Serie A. Again, there's another potential. He's currently at PSG, learning his trades. So there is potential there. But the problem is, I suppose, when you're kind of measured on results, is this a risky strategy? Like, Andrea has alluded to, the first game against France, that's a massive ask to put these kids into it. So it's going to take time. It's not going to be a straight way fix. But I think there are certain individuals, Rory, that could go into that squad right now.
Well, this is something that I wanted to... No, absolutely. And there's a really exciting, players like Wisdom, Ame as well at Bologna, but Pafundi, Casadei, as you said, Chiode. There's a lot of exciting young Italian players coming through. But Andrea, it's about them getting the opportunities, right? And it's quite controversial. This, like, obviously, I watch quite a bit of Serie C. I enjoy watching lower league football, and people are getting quite heated about the under 23 teams coming into Serie C and it cheapening the league, right? And to an extent, I agree with that, right? But if we're talking about the Italian national team, AC Milan now joining this league, I think they're in Girone C, so they're in the no. Anyway, they're in one of the leagues. This is good for the Italian national team, right? Because we've seen the success with Juve, with them being able to bring through players quite quickly, like Cambiasso, right? They've brought through the defender at Roma, whatever his name is, completely gone now.
Huijsen.
That's him, right? Like, they're bringing through these young players quite quickly. Do you think it's a good thing for the Italian national team that the Serie A teams are being able to get into the lower leagues?
Yeah, most definitely. I think it's another pathway that you can look at. Of course, loaning into Serie C teams would be a lot easier as well. But if you're getting these kind of teams embedded into the lower leagues, it's another pathway for them to join and also compete with players of the similar level anyway that they kind of grow and work towards. But I think the main issue for me, I would say, for the national team is that we've always kind of historically have always had the under 21s, players playing for the under 21s right until the limit. And they're never really pushed into the first team like straight away. Like, if there's a talent, they should be in the team. Like, I look at Lamine Yamal at Spain. Like, he's justified that he's in the team. It doesn't matter if he's 16. He's justified. He's that good, you know. And I feel like there's players out there that could easily get in. So, like, I think Adam mentioned Bafundi is one example. I think he looks really good to already be in the squad. I think Mancini even picked him for one game. So there are players that need to kind of revolutionize this idea that you can't play until you have to play with the certain systems and stick at it, because we've seen time and time again. You even saw, like, last year, Tonali was playing at the Euros for the under 21s, and like, he shouldn't be there. He should be in the national team. You know, it's ludicrous sometimes, the kind of decision making of like dropping people to the under 21s when they're clearly too good for that level, and clearly, ironically, we need them because we've got no one else better or any players that can easily compete to their level. So I think this is a whole revolution that is needed, but I feel like that kind of starts from the core of like the president coming down to the manager and then obviously everyone else. But this is, if they're going to keep this, they really have to change it. But I don't know. I fear that they're not really going to change it. I feel like a fresh change of president, you know, a manager would have kind of installed kind of maybe this kind of new beginning of like revolutionizing like these young players coming through. Because I also felt like, you know, yes, we didn't have the greatest squads, but I feel like the squad selection and stuff kind of neglected actual players, good players we actually had. We could have easily gone to this tournament, even with the injuries, with a really good squad. Like Adam said, Coyote, for me, I'm not being biased, but I think he's quality. He's got potential to be a superstar. I think he's already good enough to be in that Italian squad.
Yeah.
So there's players that clearly, you know, have the quality. It's just changing that kind of that nature of always just like, you know, keeping the under 21s to the last minute and then bring them forward and then rely on these old heads that have never performed. They never will perform. For me, Cristante is like that prime example. I've never rated him. I don't know what he does, but I'm always going to say his name, to be fair, so I feel bad. But the point is, there's players like him and lots of others that always get in the team and they will never reach those heights or deliver. And then you've seen this under 21 player who could even excel their career even further if they're getting that kind of opportunity now. Like Adam was saying, if Kamada was there, it's an experience. He gets part of the Euro squad, the feel, the excitement. It's a learning curve. Yes, even if he didn't play, it's a learning curve. It's an opportunity, but that's a structural thing as well that they need to change internationally. But I feel like maybe the club level, like we were saying, that the club level, at least they can start kind of playing more. The youngsters are playing more, and potentially maybe the national team might look at them more, including them into the first team, the natural setup. But only time will tell, I guess, in this sense.
I think it's kind of interesting now because I think it's a cultural thing in Italy in general. Like, living in this country is like, it's a very old country, right? It's a very old country, and they don't trust young people. Like, experience above everything is important in Italy. Like, if you are experienced, that is above everything else. So I think it's not even like a football specific thing. It is just a cultural thing. So you're fighting against a tide there. Like, but I think this is like obviously not qualifying for the past 2 World Cups or whatever it is, and this terrible performance, it's a wake-up call that's needed, right? It happened with the German FA, it happened with the French FA. it happened with the English FA, right? And maybe this is the wake-up call where they're going to look and go, wait, well, that's what the other countries are doing. Lamine Yamal, as you pointed out, is good enough. He is playing. He's joint topping goals and assists in the tournament at 16. If you know what I mean, like these people kind of do it, right? So I think, yeah, maybe it's a wake-up call that they need. But like you, Andrea, I'm not really holding my breath for that change because I've lived in this country long enough to know that things change quite slowly here. But we're going to leave the depression there for now. I think that's everything covered with Italy, really, until the until that France away trip. That'll be fun. And let's move on to maybe more depression. I don't know. Let's talk England. And it's the news, right? Just... Why do our journalists insist on giving our opponents a 5-day heads up on tactical changes in teams at every single tournament? Why do they insist on doing this? Just keep your mouth shut and maybe we'll surprise them. But yes, in case you haven't heard, England are set to switch to a back three and Gareth is set to gamble, which is quite exciting news. Obviously, Mark Gahey, arguably England's best player of the tournament, will be missing, which means Konza comes in, which I don't think is terrible news, to be honest. But Adam, I'm going to go to you first. Your initial thoughts of switching to a back three. I'm pretty excited about this. I'm not going to rant about Bukayo Saka too much, but I am quite excited about this.
I actually feel this was the formation he should have gone to start off this tournament. I think a back three would have been far more comfortable. The problem is I've always felt this from the group stages. He's tried to accommodate too many of the attacking flair players and he hasn't found a system that works for all. This is by the fact that, he's trying to force Foden into that kind of team, playing him on the left-hand side where he doesn't naturally play in those kind of positions for maybe Man City. And he's playing him and forcing others to adapt their roles. Kieran Trippier is another example where he's not naturally fitted for that left back position, for example. There's so many flaws across that team that we could kind of pick. I suppose the one thing you have to say is at this stage, he's managed to get England to progress to this point, which is probably the achievement out of it all, given the circumstances and the performances that have been delivered by England. But yeah, there is huge question marks about whether this is the right approach. I would say naturally, given the types of players that are available, and this allows for that kind of steady kind of performance in that midfield, because I think they are naturally just tired, but they need to ensure that when they've got the ball in terms of the midfield, they're actually driving at the players. I think Mainu kind of demonstrated that in the last match. They need more of that going forward. And I think personally, I'm surprised he hasn't gone with two up top, because I think there was a light bulb moment when he brought in Tony. I was thinking to myself at the time, I don't know about you, Rory, but 3 minutes, are you fucking joking? Like, what does he expect him to do? But then we saw it all unfold. We saw Bellingham do the magnificent, and then literally as the kind of extra time started, Kane gets that opportunity and heads home. And that was all caused by the fact that there was two up top. And I think a lot of these teams that have kind of relied upon one man up top have struggled in games. And that was kind of amplified by this England squad. So, look, I don't think this is a bad thing, but I'm actually surprised he hasn't gone with two up top just to give Switzerland a bit of more of a dilemma.
Well, I think this Euro 2024 has shown us that old school football's back, right? Pump it long to the to the big man and get it in the mixer. Like, it's been so successful, and I've absolutely loved it. Plenty of goals from 35 yards. But I think, Adam, this is exactly what I looked at when I looked at the team. I went, Foden and Bellingham have already been getting in each other's way every single game, and now you're putting them closer together and asking them to do the same job. Like, it's the one thing where I was like, I understand that Foden's Premier League Player of the Year, right? And Christ alive, if every player in the England team got the PR that Foden did, they'd all be delighted, right? But I think you don't have to start him, right? No. Bellingham is a better player. He just is. I'm sorry he's in the same position, but he just is. He's a better player. So I think you have to bring Foden off the bench or start Foden and bring Bellingham off the bench. Just make a decision. Like, you can't just put both of them in. We're just back to Lampard and Scholes or whatever it was, that forever Gerrard and Lampard, whatever the bloody debate was. We're just back there, but further up the pitch. And I think you need a manager who's going to be strong and go, we need one number 10. That's it. And then we get the strikers up top. I think you're absolutely right with the fact that Tony played really well when he came on. he held up the ball and kept hold on to possession more than Harry Kane has in the entire tournament, as far as I could tell, in the 3 minutes that he came on, right? And I think having that two up top, they work together really well. So I think that is the one thing where I would say I'm a little bit concerned about that. But Andrea, I am obviously obsessed and in love with Bukayo Saka. I think he's the best right winger in the world. The team should be built around him, right? But he's going to be playing at left back. Does this concern you? I think he did pretty well playing 3 positions against Slovakia, but it is Slovakia and Switzerland are a proper team with pacey wingers. Like, I can already see Mbolo running at Saka. He's as quick as him, but he's not defensively the greatest. Like, do you think this is an issue for England?
I think it's a worry. I think purely because on the basis that defensively he's going to be relied upon as well, just to come back as much as going forward as a wing back. I feel like it kind of gets neglected because it's a left wing back. It seems like he'll be going forward way more than he'll defend. Yeah. But in games you're going to be pinned back, and you're going to have to rely on him to stop the crosses. All the basic kind of defending as a left back would do. And that is quite worrying that he probably might struggle with that. And I don't blame him because it's not his natural position. So I think it's a bit harsh on him. The only one thing I'll say is, and I feel like switching the formation, I actually think is a good idea from England, because I feel like they've lacked that technical ability in midfield, with like the 1 or 2 midfielders in the middle to kind of dictate and hold the ball, like Spain does, for example, to kind of relieve pressure. And I feel like with this formation, at least kind of one of the defenders can go forward and the wing backs can be used to kind of switch the play. So I feel like Saka and Trent potentially on the wing backs can be used a lot to kind of like bring the game forward. But so certainly in that aspect, it's going to offer a lot of width and a lot of opportunity to kind of spread the ball and not be so not composed and unsure in the middle where they've made mistakes. So those extra 1 or 2 men in midfield really will hopefully kind of shore up the midfield defense. But going back to Saka, I feel like it's only a worry that as the game goes on, if he's on a yellow early on, that there's a lot of situations that could happen.
Yeah.
But you're asking a lot from someone who doesn't naturally play there. And it might just be him, and he might have to stay there for the whole game because there's no one else. But that obviously goes back to Southgate not picking like a left back that's fit, or that's fit even. But I think it's a concern. The only thing that might get him out of jail is the fact that there's the third centre back and also an extra man in midfield to kind of ease the pressure when in certain like dangerous situations.
Yeah, I think because Adam, you know what I'm like, but I'm getting concerned that he's just going to get thrown under the bus when it all goes wrong, and it's going to be Bukayo Saka's fault again, and he's being lined up for a load of abuse that he doesn't deserve, right?
Yeah, no, he will. Unfortunately, I think he's just physically tired, to be honest. I think that's an element that people forget about this as well. Like, genuinely, I think he's just doing the best that he can in that position where he's not maybe naturally suited right now. He did obviously start off in that position, Rory. So, he has got an understanding of what he needs to do, right? But ultimately, he's been not used to that position for a number of years, And I think this is the problem. Like, given the kind of culture, it's quite toxic. Being an England supporter, you have to give abuse to your players if they're not performing well. And, that is just the very nature of being an England supporter. But yeah, unfortunately, Gareth Southgate hasn't got anyone that he can lean upon, and Saka is that man, unfortunately. Yeah. But ultimately, the blame should be at Southgate. It should be directed. And I think there's a lot of pressure on him to deliver. Look, if he doesn't get the result, I don't think he will get as much abuse this time round versus the Slovakia match, which sounds really bizarre, because I think people will go, oh, well, it was an easy run, but we got beaten by a better side, if that makes sense, in Switzerland. And I think that's we have to talk up Switzerland here as well, because Ndoye's had a fantastic tournament so far. They've got obviously Xherdan Shaqiri, who can be that kind of someone that's a bit random. He can just turn it on. You've got some solid foundations in Xhaka in that midfield. We've also got Akanji in that defensive line. And then beyond that, you've got Jan Sommer, who's coming off a fantastic season at Inter as well. So this isn't going to be a straightforward match for England. And I suppose this is going to be the fascinating kind of thing in terms of dynamics, is how does England approach it? Will they rely on set pieces to break down this Switzerland side? or will they go out and attack them as we probably speculate is going to happen? But I have got no evidence to suggest in the kind of build up to this that they've got the players that will kind of do that. And I suppose maybe there's an argument that maybe a Jared Bowen or Anthony Gordon is probably better suited when it comes to those latter stages of this match. Perhaps they will stretch the game and potentially create those moments. So it'd be fascinating whether Gareth Southgate has that kind of game plan. I suspect, though, Rory, I'm overthinking it. I don't think he has got a game plan. So who knows?
I think, look, I think the fact he's even changing formation is like, okay, he knows that things aren't going well. The only issue for me is that we're coming up against one of the teams that's looked the most impressive this tournament, I think, in terms of like a team, right? Like Granit Xhaka, one of the best midfielders in Europe this year, right? One of the best midfielders is probably going to be in the team of the tournament, I think, in terms of the level of performance he's been putting in. He's got a grudge to settle with Arsenal, and he's going to take it out on England. So I apologise, England fans. Like he is going to have a point to prove. But I think this is by far the most difficult team England are going to have faced. And yeah, even players like Mbolo coming straight back and scoring straight away. Like you said, Ndoye, Abisha, who we're familiar with from Bologna, had a fantastic. He got a goal and assist in the first game, right? He's been fantastic as well. This is going to be a difficult one, but England have to come out punching, because I think if we allow Switzerland to get control of the ball, they're gonna punish us. Like, we have to at least try and put our foot down on the ball and dictate the game and play it at our pace, because it could get out of control quite quickly. Because I know even Hungary weren't the greatest team, right? They kind of flattered to deceive a little bit, but Switzerland scored in quick succession and kind of got that game killed off. So I think it could really get out of England's hands quite quickly. Like, Andrea, how do you see this one going? Like, Switzerland are a proper team.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really close game. I feel like it's one of those games where Switzerland looks so strong defensively. It's hard to see them conceding many goals. But then on the England side, even though they've looked a bit susceptible at times in defence, they've kind of got the nurture sometimes to actually hold on and not concede. And they've proven it in this tournament as well, even though it hasn't gone as well. The only thing I would say is that Switzerland right now are a team who are organised. They're switched on. They know each other's roles. And England, obviously, they're going to switch this formation, which, again, is quite a few risks in position. So there could be some, fragilities, I guess, for England to kind of go into the game. But I generally think it'd be a close game. But the only thing I would say is that I think what Adam was saying is right, that they've got to, if they're going to let Switzerland have the ball, which I feel like will happen because Switzerland have the confidence and they have the midfielders to do that, England, with the formation, should be able to try and use that high press to their advantage as well, with the wing backs and everything. And they've got to be consistent on that, because obviously if they drop back, it becomes a 5 and it becomes 2, it becomes very cagey. So it's kind of being that confidence of just like, we've got 5, we're going to push forward, we're going to high press, get Bellingham up there, but it's just whether they do that consistently and whether they, as a team, they're all on the same page. That would be the only worry, that they kind of fall back under the pressure that they are naturally going to be under, because they have been underperforming. It's a big ask to overturn a team that's organising control. So it's just whether they just play the card right, they're disciplined, stick to the game plan, and see if they can, high press, cause mistakes. Even counter-attacks could be vital in this game as well for England. So there are ways for England to win this game. It's just kind of obviously making sure they don't fall into the trap, as you were saying, of Switzerland dominating the ball and dominating the game for most of the 90 minutes. So that would be the key aspects, I think, for England to look at. But it'll sadly be a close game. I think you go either way. I really don't think it's for Switzerland, because a lot of people are saying Switzerland look too good, but I feel like you can't rule out England. They have the star quality. You saw against Slovakia, Kane and Bellingham, they can produce those magical moments, and not many teams have those type of players that can do that. So when you've got those type of players, you're always within the chance anyway, even if you're underperforming. So I think, in that sense, it's quite even. It can go either way.
It should be a very exciting game. But Adam, I think on my last point on this, and I'll see what I'll get your thoughts, is that England defensively have been pretty solid, right? We're not giving away a lot of goals. We've not scored many, but we've not given away a lot of goals, right? Defensively. And that was where the concern was pre-tournament, was like, is our defense good enough? How's the defense looking, right? But Switzerland are the team that are outperforming their XG the most. So they have an XG of 4.65, but they've scored 7 goals, right? So this is a team that are on a hot streak, right? They are, when they get a chance, no matter how small it is, they're taking it, right? So this is going to be the hardest test that the defense has faced as well, right? So is this a good time to give a new system for the defense? Do you think Switzerland could cause us problems?
I think, look, you have to kind of, in these kind of knockout rounds, it's a one-off game. So you have to obviously make it less easier for your opponent by changing formation. That gives them something to think about. And like you say, potentially the fact that the press have leaked it makes it a bit easier for them to understand how England's going to approach it. So it's probably not ideal preparation if they are going to go with that formation. However, look, I think you've got to adapt in a positive manner and try and ensure that you've got a game plan. And I suppose that is probably the philosophy going into this week, that they are going to approach this with, this is the players, this is your roles, and these are the players that you've got to be mindful of. It'll be interesting, but I still feel that given that they're going to a back three, they are much more comfortable when it comes to those situations, especially in international football where you've got three centre-backs and you're less reliant on the other centre-back to do all of your work. Because sometimes as a free, we kind of speculate Kyle Walker is the one that normally gets them out of jail sometimes, and that's worked in the past, right? But I genuinely think this is an opportunity for England, especially if they can, maybe if they're going to focus down that right-hand side, you know, this is a good opportunity for like a Trent, for example, to bomb down that side, create a little bit more and do his natural bits. So potentially this might be a bit more of a balanced squad as well and counteract what the Swiss are going to offer. The player that I forgot to even mention was Vargas, and what a tournament he's having, you know, coming from Augsburg as well. I think that is an interesting player. And the fact that they have adapted to kind of that 5 or 3 centre-back pairing, that I think that's probably to counteract that kind of threat on the wings. So it'll be interesting to actually see what Switzerland do if they're frustrated. I haven't seen Switzerland necessarily frustrated in games. So this could work in England's favour. Let's see how it approaches. But for me, I still feel that Gareth Southgate should probably put a 2 up top just to give something for Switzerland to think about. But you never know. Maybe that's the kind of game plan. Maybe kind of see it for the 45 minutes and then surprise them with 2 up top. We'll see.
Well, and I think it would be hilarious now if all this is just some double bluff and he's going to stick with 4 at the back. Like, I think that would be absolutely hilarious, but we will see what happens on Saturday. That game is just triple checking. But we're going to leave England there and we're going to kind of go to the other games. And it's pretty exciting, guys. Pretty ruddy exciting. Friday night, it all starts at 6:00 European time. And we have, I think, game of the day. Well, no, it is game of the day. Spain taking on Germany. Now, Andrea, for me, already this should kind of be the final, right? These are the 2 teams that have looked the best. They've shown the most quality. It's a shame that one of them's going to go, but how excited are you about this game? It should be an absolute banger.
Very excited, yeah. Like you said, they're both informed teams. It is a shame that it's not the final. But it's 2 completely different styles as well. Germany way more direct, whereas Spain, you know, like to control and dominate possession. It's just going to be 2 like huge battles in terms of out wide as well for both teams. So it's going to be a very entertaining game. I hope so. But I feel like it's just one of those games where it's just there's going to be a lot of hype going into it, and I hope it delivers. I just hope it's not one of those games where you get the hype and then it just, you know, we've all been there every time with these type of games. So. But I'm sure it will be because, like I said, every game they've played, they've been consistent in their performances. I think even Germany, when they lost to Switzerland, they were still like, you know, they still played well in that sense. But they've shown good signs in every game, and they've both got really good options coming on from the bench as well. So it should be a consistent game throughout. So I'm hoping for a really good game, but I'm sure it will be.
I'm absolutely hyped for this. Like Adam. Like the players that have stood out for me for Germany were the names that I didn't really expect, right? So Raum at left back, I think, has been absolutely fantastic. Every performance, I've been like, who is this guy? I've been really impressed with him. Andrick in midfield as well. But what I love is the Sane, Musiala, Gundogan little triplet at the front there, because you've got the pace of Sane and the technicality of Musiala, as well as like winning tackles and dribbling. Like Musiala does everything, right? And then just the experience and sheer quality of Gundogan. Like that front 3 kind of behind the legend that is Kai Havertz. But that front three, this is going to be the sternest test for Spain as well, right?
Yeah, it's going to be almost like a game of chess, isn't it? It's to see how they can outdo each other. Now, I think although Spain have demonstrated some really attacking and exciting football, there is a fragility in that defensive element. And, we saw it in the group stage against Italy, although Italy didn't really exploit it enough. When I was doing the watch along, for example, when Le Monde is isolated, he's susceptible on the turn. And I think he's potentially the area where Germany could target. Now, my question mark is, could Kai Havertz kind of push him into an area, or could a Füllkrug be better placed against him? So this is going to be a fascinating dilemma for Nagelsmann, is to see which way he's going to go. I think he will stick with Kai Havertz. Personally, I think he will stick with that and bring Füllkrug as that impact player when he gets a bit tired. So from that point of view, I think also Laporte has had some moments where he's been susceptible on his passing. And, from a kind of wing back position point of view, Carvajal has been just a solid right back. But again, if you can get some pace against him, and I'm thinking Leroy Sané against him, that could be an interesting battle in itself. The same with Cucurella. Cucurella's had a fantastic, tournament so far, and he's.
I didn't expect him to be Spain's best defender. I'll be honest, because he's been an absolute shit show at Chelsea.
But again, I feel that there is an element in his game where if he is dragged a little bit into those attacking positions, then that's where on the quicker counter-attack, they can be exploited. So there is an opportunity. I think it's also interesting from a dynamic of the central midfield, because I think Rodri is going to be the pinnacle that you try and isolate. Now, I think him and Gundogan is going to be a fascinating watch in itself. But then you've got Fabian Ruiz, who's been really good on the technical aspects and kind of divvying that kind of ball around, spreading it around. So it's going to be fascinating. It'll be interesting to see the dynamics of both and how they approach it. It's just going to be, for me, it's just who's going to control who. And I think this is where it's going to be a real test for Spain, but also for Germany point of view of how they can maybe counteract it. How can they go on the attack? And it'll be interesting, the experience of, like, say, a Thomas Muller. Could he be brought off the bench and create that bit of chaos? That kind of unapologetically, but he'll just do a turn that will drag a defender out of position. So this is where I think, look, Spain are a great side. I've tipped them to go all the way at this moment in time. But I think if they can just drag those defenders, there could be an opportunity there.
Yeah, and I think the atmosphere is going to have a lot to say with it, right? Germany are at home. They're going to be expected to kind of try and take the game to Spain, right? I know the German fans are perfectly realistic about what they expected from their team and what they kind of, what their limitations are. But I think when you're at home, you want to see your team attacking, right? So there's going to be a bit of onus there on Germany to get forward. I think the other point for me is now arguably another player of the tournament, but Nico Williams up against Joshua Kimmich at right back. Now, Kimmich has made it perfectly clear that he's not happy at right back. Right, he always says that he doesn't want to play right back. Like, Andrea, this is a particular spot for Germany or for Spain even that they could really exploit. Right, like Kimmich is a fantastic player, but he's coming up against one of the wingers who's impressed most this tournament. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like Nico Williams has kind of grown every game. I feel like he's played better every game in this tournament. He's kind of grown. He's just going to get better and better. And I feel like they use him a lot in the system that Spain play as well. They like to get it to him quite quick out wide. And he's always constant, wants to dribble, wants to take on his man, which I love. I feel like wingers don't do that as often as they should. But he's always wants to just take them on. And he can create a lot of problems. And it might be turns to the point where Germany might have to double up on him as well, which obviously can cause space in behind. So it's just whether they can handle him. But I feel like against Kimmich, Nico Williams will be loving that fact. I feel like he will definitely relish the chance of going against him in a one-on-one, for example. But it's just whether it kind of causes that problem in the back if there's going to be some sort of cover, doubling up. But it's just where they're going to have to kind of tailor their game to defend against Nico Williams, because he is such a strong point in his Spanish side and their chances that they create in this tournament so far.
It is going to be a fascinating one. I'm going to put you both on the spot and say who goes through. Adam, I'm going to go with you first.
I'm glad
I'm
he's
going to
first.
go with Spain.
Yeah,
I'm going
me
to go.
too.
I'm going to go with Spain. I'm going to go with Spain, and they'll do it in normal time.
Nice. Andrea, what do we think?
I have to agree. Yeah, Spain in normal time. I'm going 2-0 actually, if I had to give a score. 2-0 Spain.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
going to say the Germans on penalties. I'm going to say Spain struggle and Germany just get through and get themselves to the semi-finals. I've got a feeling about Germany. Kai Havertz gets the winning penalty. There we go. I've probably just jinxed him. But let's move on to the next one. I think we're all a bit less excited about this game because arguably two of the most boring teams in the tournament so far, apart from England, as Portugal take on France. Neither of these teams are really done anything in the last couple of games. Massively underwhelmed by France. Portugal, it just became the Ronaldo show. Can we talk about the Ronaldo psychodrama? I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that against Slovenia. Seeing that man's ego and kind of career crumble, it really gives me so much pleasure. But both of these teams have really underwhelmed. Andrea, I'm going to go for you first. I think we both expected so much more from Portugal and France, right?
100%. I feel like the starting 11 in particular is so strong, but they've just been very lackluster. Like, I feel like France haven't had that focal point in Giroud that I think they've kind of missed that focal point with Giroud previously. So I feel like their kind of gameplay has kind of changed because of that. But then when you look at Portugal as well, with that midfield, you expect them to dominate more and actually create more chances. But I feel like they've also been a bit unsure in midfield at times as well. But I feel like both teams are kind of have the kind of similar problem as the number 9 up front. I mean, like Portugal are relying keeping Ronaldo on when perhaps they should switch him out earlier on or actually start. There's some other players on there that can do a job up top. So I think there's a lot of loyalties in that sense in certain positions, but it's just I don't know what it is. It's some sort of morale or something, but they both just don't look like they have the they have the capability to actually go on and win this thing. They've just gone through each game and they've scraped it. I think France in particular have been quite fortunate because if it wasn't for this thing about England, how poor they've been, I feel like France would have been looked at. I feel like France have been overlooked how poor they've been because I feel like they've been even worse than England. And but both teams, yeah, right now it just screams a 0-0, right? Overall, like it just screams like extra time and someone just maybe a random goal or penalties. But yeah, they've both got to step up if they're going to have any chance of winning this competition.
Well, Adam, let's focus on Portugal and let's talk about this Ronaldo issue. I think there's been some interesting things talked about Ronaldo and the fact that he's gone from the main focal point of everyone just give him the ball and he'll sort it out to now the players kind of not rating him that much and realizing that maybe he's hindering them. And the thing with the free kicks just became an absolute farce by the end of was it the Slovenia fans cheering every time he stepped up for a free kick? And you can see the other players looking at him and being like, oh man, you're not that guy anymore, right? You're just not that guy. But is it on Roberto Martinez to be the big man and drop him and bring in Gonzalo Ramos? He's had a pretty good season for PSG, 14 goals in his first season in France. He's done nothing wrong. He was fantastic at the World Cup last time, right? Like, what does he need to do to get in the team? Is it just time they get past Ronaldo?
I think Ronaldo just needs to retire before you can actually see a Portugal side actually show us what they can actually do. This feels like a dictatorship. This is likened to the Kim Jong-un of football. The fact that he gets everything to be provided for him. Every pass you can see is deliberate in the kind of mannerism. It's all focused around him. If it wasn't for Martinez kind of saying, look, in the group stage, if you don't come off, you're going to be sent off in this game. Like that's the problem that I find, that everything seems to be focused around him, but the team, as you alluded to, are deteriorating. They're just, they're having to kind of soldier on despite the fact that they know he's a legend. They know what potentially credentials he's got, but unfortunately, he cannot survive a whole 90 minutes or potentially even longer if it goes into extra time and so on. So you could see that emotion come out of him in that particular game against Slovenia. And, I think we were all kind of hoping Slovenia would win that just so we could put him out of his misery, right? But literally, I think if he, or this is Martinez, has the balls to drop him, I think Portugal play better. They really do. And I think to France's point, if they don't have Griezmann playing really well, they seem to struggle. They really don't have that kind of charismatic player that can turn and create things. And I think, there's a reliance on Mbappe, but outside of Mbappe, this France squad looks pretty ordinary. And, Rabiot's Rabiot. He's coming to show what he is in this tournament. So again, this, like we say, it's the most uninspiring game, but it should be even better because of the talent that both of these squads have. And that's the unfortunate thing. Like I say, I think if Portugal were to be played at their full strength, they probably see this French side very easily to the side.
I think, there's just looking through that France team, the fact that like N'Golo Kante has been their best midfielder this tournament, which is just like absolute hats off to Kante, because my God, what a man, what a player. Just seeing him again, like absolutely killing it. I was like, oh, it just made me so happy. But like Theo Hernandez being their biggest attacking threat, like that guy is so fucking good. He's so good. But the fact that he's standing out, like you said, those attacking players just aren't clicking. The whole mask thing is affecting Mbappe, right? He's talked about it's affecting his peripheral vision. He can't get one that doesn't get right. So it's clearly affected him a little bit. I think Thuram has been a little bit unlucky. And like you said, Andrea, they're missing that focal point with Giroud, right? Thuram is like just not quite Olivier Giroud, right? He's had a fantastic season with Inter, but he's kind of still fitting into this team. I think, this has got fucking 0-0 painful written all over it. I'm really not looking forward to this game, but we will get through it together, guys, and we will talk about it afterwards, and we'll all treat it like therapy once it's done. But again, I'm going to put you on the spot, and this time, Andrea, you're going to go first. I'll go first on the next one, I promise. Who goes through, Portugal or France?
I'm happy you did too, but it's probably the easier one in terms of the scoreline. But no, I think 0-0 penalties. I'm going to go for France though on penalties.
Very nice. Adam, what do you think?
Boring 1-0 win for France in normal time.
I think we're going to think we get penalties, but then annoyingly, someone's going to score in the 119th minute, so we don't even get penalties.
Colomwani.
Colomwani in the 119th minute, and that's your 100 million right there. And I think, 1-0 to France in the 119th minute, I'm going to say, and we'll all be really pissed off that we stayed up late for nothing. But let's move to the last game, and we'll talk about one I'm personally am very excited about, the hipster's choice of the round. I think Netherlands taking on Turkey. We just have to give a second to that save from Mert at the end of the game against Austria. One of the best saves I've ever seen in my life. I was having dinner with the girlfriend at the time with the football in the background, and just mid-sentence, I was like, just stop. Like, sorry. Did you see that? That was absolutely incredible. Unbelievable save. She wasn't best pleased. But Andrea, Turkey have been absolute chaos this tournament. There's a lot of emotion behind them, scoring a lot of goals. They will be without one of the worst men on the planet, Merih Demiral. But do you think Turkey have a chance in this game?
I think they do. I feel like both teams defensively, that they could easily target goals in both games. I think both teams could easily score in this game. I feel like it'd be a goal-scoring game. The only thing is whether they can control a bit more of the game. I feel like Netherlands might get more of the ball in the game, but they've got certainly potential Turkey up top. I'm Yildiz Arda Güler as well. Like they've got potential players that can cause a lot of problems for the Netherlands. But I just see goals in this game. I really do. I feel like both teams end-to-end kind of game, because I feel like that's their strengths, and they might as well just play to that strengths in this game. Because I feel like holding off won't work for either team. No. It's just whether I hope they both go for it, because I think it's the best way that either team can win the game. But certainly going forward, both teams, that's their strength, so they should obviously use that. But I think the Demiral suspension might affect Turkey in terms of defensively. But I mean that save from the goalkeeper, I feel like that's going to murder them for the next game. That was incredible. But
absolutely incredible.
They've got nothing to lose, so and that's the best feeling when you've got nothing to lose. You're not the favourite, and you never know. And I feel like Netherlands aren't the strongest team either, so it's not like there's no way you could say Netherlands are definitely favourites either. Possibly slight, but I feel like it's a very 50-50 game, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I can massively see Netherlands dropping an absolute clanger here and going out. I think it's got it written all over it. I can see Koeman already fuming. Like, I can just see it in my head, like it happening. But Adam, before we talk about Netherlands, I just want to talk a moment about Arda Güler, because he's a player that I hadn't really watched much of beyond YouTube compilations, right? I don't watch much Turkish Superliga. And when he signed for Real Madrid, I was like, okay, it'll be like a Martin Odegaard situation. They've just hoovered him up and he's never going to get a chance, right? But looking at this guy, he can do everything. He's tiny, but he wins balls in the air. He brings it down. He holds onto it. He brings players into play. His passing range is incredible. He scores long-range goals. He can beat a man. Like, he's just a complete footballer, and he's 18. He's obviously had a bit of a difficult season at Real Madrid with injuries and stuff, but it feels like now he's really coming into form. He scored quite a few goals for Real Madrid, like compared to minutes towards the end of the season. Like he's coming into form at the perfect time, right? And we've just seen him absolutely flying in this tournament.
Yeah, he's got such an elegance in terms of his style of football that he almost looks like the ready-made replacement for Modric at Real Madrid. He almost looks straight away like, you know what, there's a legend that's saying goodbye and another one's just been born. He's coming into that squad. And yeah, he just seems to have that just control about his game. You know, he knows when to kind of hit it right. You know, you saw it even with the kind of elegance of the set piece where Demiral scores the second, for example. Gets it into the box, gives it to the crowd, gets pelters for it, but he doesn't care. He you know, he's that kind of player that thrives off that kind of pressure, and you know, he just looks so mature for his age. Again, he's like Bellingham-esque in that kind of manner. So yeah, superlatives in the way that he's kind of performed, considering he had an injury as well, and he's just recovered, as you say, got some game time under Ancelotti. And he just looks so good, so good. And I think that is going to be the key for Turkey is, can he and Çalhanoğlu kind of control the Dutch midfield? I think that's the critical part, because I think attacking wise, they can get at the Netherlands defense. You know, De Vrij, I've never been a big fan of his at Inter. But he's had moments in this tournament. I think if you're going to do anything, you tackle or go and get the ball as much as you can. At the other end, I know what you're saying about the fact that Demiral is missing, but I think what might be the blessing is Depay isn't really, you know, firing on all cylinders. Cody Gakpo is probably the guy that you have to probably put a lot more focus towards. And, you know, Xavi Simons is one that you kind of think outside of that. Maybe Reinders on his occasion as well. He could maybe be a threat. But I think generally I would agree with Andrea's assessment. I think Turkey are the ones that I fancy to go through in this tie, just purely because I think if they concentrate on the game, on their game, as opposed to the Netherlands, and they showed they have a lot of grit in that last match, for example. So again, against Austria, where it came to those latter stages of matches, you felt maybe there might be a goal coming through, but they saw it out, you know, and I think they look a threat on the counter-attack as well. So I think as long as Montella, and I think he'll kind of try and make sure there's a high press on this Netherlands kind of team overall. I think that is the key point. And I think Koeman really struggles. I think the only way he's going to counteract that is he'll bring off his mate Wout Weghorst off the bench to be the big man to hold it up. But then I think the problem is you're expecting him to turn and run at the Turkish defense. And I think they've got enough pacey kind of defenders to absorb that as well. So it'll be fascinating matchup from that point of view. But I think if Montella goes about it, I think you cause the Netherlands a lot more problems. But there must be an air of optimism about this Netherlands side, the fact that they've got to this stage, right? I don't think there's a lot of hope.
Look, I don't know. I've seen Wout Weghorst outpace the Irish defence, and that is impressive. That guy has got pace, right? But I think what for me with the Netherlands, that's more of an indictment on the Irish defence, I imagine. But with the Netherlands, it's the enigma that is Memphis Depay, right? Because I think he was fantastic against Romania. I thought he genuinely had a really, really good performance against Romania. But then some games he just absolutely disappears. Yeah. He's pretty close to being Netherlands' all-time top goal scorer, which sounds absolutely mental. Wow. I can't get my head around. But Andrea, if Depay can definitely cause Turkey problems, right? And he is going to be shutting him and Xavi Simons down is the main focus, right? Because if Depay is on form, then he's going to cause them trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if he hasn't scored and hasn't created as much, he runs in behind, like he's very clever, intelligent on the ball, but also in the runs in behind, he's really clever on that aspect as well. But they've got a lot of link-up plays again. There's Gakpo as well, who I think has looked really good this tournament as well. I think the interchange between those kind of three is really key and perhaps could take them further in the competition. But certainly, though, Depay, I guess, in this game will need to step up. But certainly, even if he doesn't have as much chances, he does cause problems for Turkey, going in, running in from behind and stretching in the defence. But I kind of see more Gakpo being potentially the main man for them going for the goals wise. But yeah, I feel like Depay still needs to step up though, because they're going to need every man against Turkey, because it's going to be a really difficult game.
It's going to be an absolute battle. I cannot wait. I'm going to go first with the predictions, and I'm going to stick with my Ronald Koeman masterclass, and I'm going to say Turkey goes through. I'm going to say there's like a late goal or another incredible late save, but I'm going to say Turkey goes through in normal time. Adam, what do you think?
I'm also going to go Turkey, but I think it'll go into extra time. I think it'll be like 2-1 potentially, but I feel Turkey will see it through.
Nice. And Andrea?
I'm going to go for Turkey in 90 minutes. I'm actually going to go for 3-2 Turkey.
I love that. I love that. Lots of goals. This is going to be like the dessert, right, at the end of the weekend, right, that we've all worked for. But guys, I've just realized we've not done predictions for the England game. So Adam, I'm going to put you on the spot. England, do they go through? Do we do it?
I'm going to say 1-1, and it will go into penalties, and England do it in penalties.
Oh, it wouldn't be a tournament with England without a penalty shootout, right? There needs to be one at some point. Andrea, what do you think?
I think Switzerland edge it. I think 2-1 Switzerland in 90 minutes.
Oh, the newspapers are going to be fun that day. I'll be honest. I'm just gonna say England get it done. I think I've got a feeling that the way the draw has fallen, we have to get it to the final. We have to get to the final. There's zero excuse. So I'm gonna say we get it done in normal time, but nobody has any fun at any point during it, and we all hate ourselves and need a shower afterwards. But hey, we'll be in the semi-finals, right? But guys, I think that's everything. That's all the Euros covered. We're getting to it's heating up, guys. It is heating up. We will be back with another show post all the quarterfinals to talk about what the hell happened and where we're lying. Andrea, always a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for coming on. When our viewers and listeners want to find you, where can they keep up with your stuff?
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok as at the Fiorentina Fan, as on screen. But yeah, I do lots about Fiorentina, of course, but obviously Serie A and other things. But enjoying life there. But yeah, mainly on TikTok, you'll find me.
My guy, good work. Adam, anything to say before I let these people get on with the rest of their weekends?
No, enjoy your football and make sure you keep in touch with our socials as well, because we'll announce some more stuff in due course as well.
We are officially back, guys. We are officially back. Thanks for joining us. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. And I think that's everything. We'll see you next time, right? Such a smooth ending. Ciao, a dopo.